Welcome to Living the Life. I'm your host, and we have a very exciting guest today. We have Stan Evans, and he's going to share quite a bit with us. He's very exciting. Stan, there are just a few things that I'm going to share with the viewers about you that I know, and I'm sure there's much more that you can tell me about yourself. You are a journalist. And
Correct.
if I leave out anything, please correct me. And I think you're a director of music. Is it?
I'm the senior music editor of a website called Jamaicans.com.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. So I'm going to put it in your ballpark now. Can you tell me a little bit more about you? Give me some more of your titles. It's some other things you had mentioned that I didn't mention.
I am this, as I said before, the senior music editor of Jamaicans.com. I am a host producer of a radio show on soundchatradio.com. It's called the Conversation Chronicles. It's basically a program that chronicles the history of the Caribbean music, Jamaican music in particular, and the politics, um, the intersection between the Black community here and the diaspora community through music, through basically through shared interests. Because one of my programs I did, I had two African American uh, psycho, is it psychotherapist? No, they're not psychotherapists. They're I forgot what they are, but basically what they do is they are ladies who have come up with some therapies to deal with racism. And
Oh,
what they're doing is basically Xanthia Johnson and Kristen Owens and Urbanology. What they do is they are a company that basically goes around to white organizations and teach them how to handle racism and how to approach Black folks and basically train them and sensitize them to the Black experience. Because what I found living in this country, and I've been here since I was 16 years old,
okay.
is that even if you're not born here, racism affects you because they never stop and ask you where you're from before it gets practiced in its many forms. So you understand that, and given the last 4 years that we've had of racial tensions and dog whistles and, just some outright racist behavior, I think that was necessary. So we've had that, we've had criminal reforms, we've had things on the history of struggle, you know, here in the Caribbean and here. So those are the kinds of things we talk about. I'm also the host on WBAI from time to time, I think called Reggae Roundtable, where we talk about our music. But my main show right now is Conversation Chronicles, where we basically just try to track our history and talk about issues that affect our community, education, uh, the history of the country, being Black folks and what our history is all about. And to be honest, everyday issues sometimes that affect us, because I was just talking to someone about, we had someone say, the war in Ukraine doesn't affect Black folks. It's white people's war. And one of my hosts on the show said, my stocks just went up because the stock market went up on the Fritz. And she said, I might be Black, but my money's green. So
Yes,
that
yes.
that was the thing that I think we try to broaden Black people's reach in terms of the things that we look at, and we're not stereotyped as looking at just racial issues and issues that affect us in that respect. Because anybody who thinks that the war in Ukraine is a white war is not looking. There are a lot of folks there. They're holding on to an African American basketball player, and I'm sure she's going to become a pawn in Putin's negotiations. Now, isn't Black folks, my thing is, isn't Black folks supposed to be concerned about that? But that is an African American. She's an American, but she's also an African American.
Yes,
So,
yes.
those are the kinds of things we kind of talk about, you know.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm also I served as a family systems therapist, as a social worker. Currently, I do work now with homeless families, and I worked for 15 years with veteran families in the Washington, D.C. area, reintegrating them into society, providing a whole host of services. When they came back from the wars, whether it's Operation Iraqi Freedom or Afghanistan, we kind of helped them readjust. And family orientation, we found jobs, from apartment, found training, daycare, training for families, mental health, all of that we work. We help in a lot of ways, working for US Vets is the name of the organization. It's the largest nonprofit veteran organization in the country. And we help pretty much almost ended homelessness among vets in the DC area. So something I'm proud of.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. I'm just listening to you, and it's several things that you're involved, engaged in. And you've been here in the States since you were 16 years old, did you say?
Correct.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. How would you compare? I know our cultures are similar. I know African Americans, and you're from where now? Jamaica?
Jamaica. Yes. Correct.
Okay, yes, okay. How do our cultures, what do we share? I know we do. I have friends
Uh,
from Jamaica.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you because I live in New York City now. Um, Sometimes it's hard to figure out who is African American, because a big part of it is that we share a lot in common in terms of just the day-to-day problems that we face. Racism is probably the most common denominator of all, because I remember when I was 16 and I lived in Vanderveer Estates, and I remember we used to hang out with our African American friends. We were teaching them soccer, they were teaching us to play basketball, kind of thing. And we well hang out together as guys. And I remember we used to go running because we wanted to stay fit. And we ran into a neighborhood that, let's just say, some white folks were there, and we were chased. It was like about 5:30 in the morning while we were chased, and there were Caribbean, there were Jamaicans and African Americans, and a couple of guys from Guyana. All of us were just jogging young men trying to stay fit, and we were chased out of that neighborhood.
Wow.
So we know that. And as I said to somebody who said to me, yeah, they don't like African Americans. I said, nobody stopped and asked me if I was from Jamaica when I was being chased. I had to run like my friends. So we understood that's an issue that we have to deal with. And of course, the regular issues of what we face on a daily basis of transportation, jobs, family issues, getting mental health services, because I've worked with a number of mental health patients also, getting services, domestic abuse, domestic violence. I was a child advocate and spent 10 years as a foster care supervisor, reuniting families, arguing for families in court. So,
Wow.
and all of that's shared, because you had Jamaicans who came here as immigrants, and you had African Americans, and they were both my clients. And when you go into court, the standard is still the same. You have to prove that the parent is capable of the child being returned to them, or they're doing the right, they're meeting the court mandated supervision or visitation or whatever else the court has mandated. So in New York, it's a little bit different. There is no major division in this city in terms of just people, the way people interact. Because you'll go to a Caribbean event and you see a lot of African Americans. And Jamaicans grew up on African American culture. We can pretty much call all the great singers because they came to Jamaica.
Okay.
And they were in the 70s when I was coming up, just far from up. There used to be a film festival, African American Film Festival. And that film festival had Rosalind Cash, Max Julian, great Whitman Mayo, which is Grady from Vanetta McGee. All of those people came to Jamaica.
Wow.
And then, of course, you had track and field where the American athletes came to Jamaica to run against the Jamaican athletes. So, we've been tied into the culture from we were kids. Of course, obviously, the movies came also. So we're familiar with the culture. And what surprised me when I went to a high school in Silver Spring, Maryland, there was a young miss, African American young miss in my class that I became friends with. She started telling me about Jamaica. But I'll tell you what was embarrassing about that. She told me about places in Jamaica that I never visited. And
Oh, really?
She could, yes, she could tell me. And I'm like, oh, goodness. Yes, and I was a little bit embarrassed that, I mean, fortunately, her father, I think, is a diplomat, so she traveled, but she knew the place. So, I mean, the similarities with the culture and the history, obviously, we are all descendants of ex-slaves. We both are.
Yes, yes,
So, and we came up under pretty much the same system, different. I think it's a little bit tougher for African Americans because you guys had to deal with harsh climatic conditions.
yes.
We didn't have that. And the more when I started to feel winter, I used to ask myself, how in God's name did slaves survive this? Because you did not you were left out in those fields and wherever you were, you know, and you develop an appreciation for the culture and the people and what they've been through. So that's my story.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm listening to you and I can identify with what you're saying. I'm in the deep South. I don't know whether you know very much about Alabama, um, but I am in the
I
deep.
have friends who live there
Okay.
because
Okay.
they went to university.
Okay. I love Alabama. I've been here all of my life. I've only been in one place, that I lived in about 10 months, and that was in nursing school. So this is my
Mm.
home. But we have experienced different types of racism.
Mhm.
We still have it. One thing that I can say that, and I say this honestly, not all whites are racist. And I have some very good friends, good and dear friends who are white, just like my Black African American friends. But racism is real.
Mm.
It's more prominent now, or maybe just as prominent as in the 60s. I was active in the civil rights movement here with
Mhm.
Dr. Martin Luther King, and the things that I experienced then, some of those things,
Mhm.
sad to say, I'm experiencing now. So I salute you in what you're doing, to try to, I do. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the thing is, I was saying to a friend of mine, I was saying to a friend of mine recently, when I came here, I saw a lot of black and white footage of the civil rights movement. And I was saying to a friend just as recent as last week, I'm seeing some things happening now that gives me the same feeling I got while I watched those movies. It's just that I'm seeing it in real time now. So it's almost a question of the more things change, the more they remain the same in some respects.
Exactly.
So
Absolutely. Well, I applaud all of what you're doing. I thought I had researched, you pretty much before I set the interview up with you, and thanks so much for agreeing to come on my little show. I'm a novice, I'm very new at this, and I'm just so honored that you would even, accept my invitation. So hats off to you for doing that. Um,
mm,
when I started this, I guess it's been off and on for about 2 or 3 years, maybe. Um, but it's more interesting. And
mm-hmm.
when I came across your information, I said, "Oh, he's very interesting. I would love to interview you." So when I asked
Mm-hmm.
that you agree for the interview, I was really floored because I didn't know whether you would accept it or not. You're very, you are an
Mm-hmm.
acclaimed journalist. The work that you do, and you've been everywhere, I guess, and you're internationally known with your radio.
Yeah, I've traveled a lot.
Okay, that is so
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
because the station is heard in 36 cities across the world.
oh, really? Oh my goodness, I have listened to you too. By the way, I have
Yes.
tuned in. Yes, I have. So,
Mm-hmm.
as a matter of fact, when I share this,
I appreciate that.
yeah, it's very interesting. The music, I may be mispronouncing this,
Mm.
but reggae, is it reggae? How do you pronounce that?
You got no, you got it right. No,
Oh,
you got it
okay.
right.
Okay, that's interesting. I have a sister who lives in New York too, by the way. She lives in Queen.
Okay.
I haven't been to New York in, oh my God, ages and ages. And she was sharing with me about reggae. And it's beautiful
Mm.
music. I've listened to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share with me some of your preparation for what you're doing, your education background?
I have a master's degree in business administration. I have a political science degree from City College here in New York, uh,
Oh,
and mass communication, and I have a certificate in international studies. Those are just the things that I have. I have certifications in a number of other areas, but that more has to do, I've already explained the social work side of things that I did. So those certifications are more tied to that.
oh,
But
wow.
I'm curious about your wellness program. I'd like to hear
Are
some more
you?
about it.
Okay. Oh, that's good to hear. I'm a wellness coach and I am doing a workshop coming up April the 2nd. And what I do with the wellness coaching, I try to promote optimal health. Right
Hmm.
now, I'm being certified. I'm in the process of training to be certified. And
Hmm.
what this program does is it looks at 12 dimensions of wellness. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know whether you're familiar with Dr. Travis.
No, no.
Okay, he's supposedly the first person to actually spearhead the wellness movement in the United
Hmm.
States. They say the world, but the
Hmm.
program that I'm being trained in is one of his programs. So,
Hmm.
what I try to do, we look at 12 dimensions of wellness, and it encompasses physical, of course, with the diet, the exercise, um, but it also goes into the emotional and the mental as well.
Okay.
So I have done wellness coaching, but it's been with my medical model, as a nurse. And in this program, I'm learning that I can't use all of the nursing. I don't want to call it skills, but I'm kind of a nurturer by nature.
Hmm.
And what I try to do is, and I'm having to unlearn this, when I come across a person, I try to nurture them and I try to fix things too. But I'm learning that's not what coaching is all about. So I'm unlearning that. But that's what I'm engaging to do. I'm trying to increase awareness of what we do. And what I found in the South, a lot of us don't know about it. A lot of people confuse me with a counselor. I said, I'm not a counselor. I'm certainly not a psychologist. So the concept is new, and I'm trying to increase awareness here in the South, but abroad as well. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm trying to do, and especially for the Black communities, with our
Hmm.
chronic illnesses, it's a component in there that has to do with preventive health too. So, in a nutshell,
Hmm.
that's what I do.
Okay. I forgot to mention also, one of my first interviews when I started my show a year ago was with the person who is now the current mayor of New York City, Eric Adams.
Oh, really?
Yes, while he was a candidate, I did the first interview for the Caribbean community. Uh, it- he was kind enough to do it. So
Oh my goodness. Wow, you have interviewed some pretty, what you call it? Renowned people, but you're renowned yourself. Um,
thank you.
I'm trying to learn from you, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I
I
learned
have
from
not
somebody.
I am not trained as a journalist, not at all. My only public speaking has been uh, teaching, in a classroom.
That qualifies, trust me.
Okay.
That qualifies because I was a substitute teacher for some time and I was
Oh,
even an
really?
adjunct. Yes, and I
Okay.
was an adjunct social science lecturer at both City and Queens College. So I kind of know what that's about. Teaching in a
Wow.
classroom. It's basically speaking before people and being comfortable to
Yeah.
speak before them. That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of getting adjusted to now. I did that for years, I guess, within my nursing career. I'm trying to, what you call it, transition
Yeah.
those skills, into this. And a lot of people ask me, well, what are you getting out of this? Why do you do that? I
Hmm.
love it.
Okay.
It's something that I enjoy doing.
And that's good because what I've seen some studies that show that people when they enjoy their job, they're happier in it and they're far more productive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so, Oh, and I forgot to mention, I do have a lot of nurses in my family. My mom is a nurse.
Oh,
My
really?
oldest, yeah, my oldest sister is a nurse, and my daughter is a nurse.
Wow. No kidding. That
Yes.
is awesome. Oh my goodness. So you know, not just a little bit, you know about what we are faced with, especially during the pandemic. That is
My,
quite
my,
interesting.
my daughter actually is a travel nurse now. She started off in something else doing international relations, and she has her master's degree in Eastern European Studies Security.
Oh,
She's the one who
wow.
kind of she's the one that kind of told me about what the stuff that you're hearing about Putin. She told me this 2 decades ago that this was coming
Oh,
because
really?
yeah, she profiled him for me, but she used to do profiling also. So she told me, but she's a travel nurse and she's been traveling over the country,
Oh,
just
wow.
working. She's having a ball with it.
That is
So
interesting. Oh my goodness. Oh my Lord. We got to do part two of this. I
okay,
can't, I can't get everything, on just this first interview because you
okay, no
have a
problem.
very interesting career and your family. So if you don't mind, maybe there will be a part two, or
I'm
perhaps
I'm
even
I'm
a
up for
part.
that.
Okay. And maybe, who knows, with my wellness coaching, maybe with all of your experience and what you're doing
Mhm,
now, perhaps we can network. If I can do anything that would be of benefit to what you're
mhm,
doing now, and I can certainly see where you would be a benefit to what I'm doing, that would be a good
mhm.
alliance if that
That's
could be
fine.
done. Oh, wonderful. Oh,
Mhm.
wow. So, what would you say to you actually interact with young people as well as older individuals? So, I guess with a younger person, someone who's aspiring to pursue a dream, they may look at it and say, oh, I can't do this because the odds are against me. What would be your advice to someone with those feelings?
Normally, I used to, and I'm dating myself here, but I used to be assistant director of family programs at the Red Cross. And a big
Oh,
part of what I did was running programs, mentoring programs. I did the male mentoring program, and you would have questions like that come up for all of the people. And basically, you say to young folks uh, what my grandmother told me. She said, if the mind of man can conceive it, the will of man will achieve it.
I like that.
And when she said that, she said, yeah. And of course, when I grew up in Jamaica, there's always the biggest reggae star is Bob Marley, and he has a line in his song. He said, "Where there's a will, there's always a way."
Okay, I've
So
heard
you
that.
use those two things to people, and you say to them, "You're always going to have people telling you what you can and cannot do." And people try to place limitations. And young folks who are insecure, just trying to find themselves, find their way in life, find what they're about, it's easy to throw negative influences on them and dissuade them from pursuing their dreams. Um, but once they see that, for example, you could say to them, I came from this, and you can, and I did it. And it's not that I'm that special, it's just that you must be committed,
Mm,
you must be disciplined, focused on what you want, single-minded focus. Once you have discovered that, and just keep doing it. And being good at something is not just being good because you're naturally good. Repetition is what brings success and perfection. So you have to do it over and over. And every time you run into a roadblock, and you are going to run into roadblocks, but I tell them, you're going to run into roadblocks. Life is about challenges. It's not about the challenge. It's about how you navigate and handle that challenge and how you come out on the other side. Because
oh, wow.
I think about my life, and I wake up every day, you wake up to a different set of challenges, even though you go to work. And sometimes you don't know what you're going to face. So you've got to prepare yourself to deal with the challenges, how to navigate your way through these challenges, and look for what I consider to be the best result. Everything has a result, but you want the best And that goes to the question of quality, because your life is supposed to be about a quality of life. You can live and you can exist, you can survive. And the things it takes for you to live, exist, and survive is not the things it takes for you to thrive. It's a different set of things.
Wow. Tell me more about that. That's interesting.
Okay, if I work with the homeless for a long time, and I found that they had their way of doing things. And once you got past all of the stereotypes and the biases and prejudices that you have, and I didn't say, you know, and you look at them and you realize that they function a certain way, but this is how they survived, this is how they lived. When you try to then, we used to have workshops where we taught people, it's called World at Work workshop, because I realized something. A person who doesn't have a job and live on the street, they have a routine, but they do things when they want. They're used to getting up when they want, they're used to moving here, moving there, when they want. You can't take that person now and tell them, you're working as a nurse. I'm working. We get up every morning. We have been programmed and disciplined. You can't take somebody who has never had that discipline and then say, okay, train them for a job, then send them to a job, because they're not going to just adjust like that, because they're used to mentally, biorhythmically, and otherwise, they're used to operating on their time schedule. In other words, I know a lot of kids that go to bed 2 o'clock in the morning, and I can tell when they come in my classroom because they're going to be asleep. And tell kids who watch TV, because the television tends to keep your brain active. I try to go to bed early at night, and an hour before going to bed, I try to just watch something easy. So that, because your brain is filtering out a lot of things while you're sleeping. So you do that. So what I'm saying this to say to youngsters, you're going to have to, you have to figure out how to get the folks who have come from another space with a lot of set of ways of operation and routines to get them. When we did World at Work, we taught folks about what it is to go to bed at a certain time, or to get up a certain time, how to prepare your clothes for work the next day, how you navigate with a supervisor when you are in a situation that is a conflict, how best to do it, how you talk to them, how you maintain your rights and at the same time remain respectful. These are not skills that homeless folks would have, or people who have poor histories of working. And we can't forget them. You know, we can't forget them because they're us and they're part of us. And as I often say, if you leave them, they're going to go on the social system and your taxes is going to have to take care of them anyhow. So if you could train them to go and work and become productive citizens, they're paying taxes to keep your roads clean and whatever else you need. So I look at the big picture in that sense when I'm looking at it. So I say to youngsters, you can accomplish what you will. You just have to be disciplined about it. I know you're young and you're going to make mistakes, but you see mistakes as a learning curve, teachable moments. Don't walk around with regret and beat up on yourself for it, because you're not going anywhere with that. You know, just look at it and say, okay, this is what I did, but it doesn't define me. And then you more importantly, you look at what you did and you say, okay, what part of that was right? What part of that was wrong? What was right? What do I need to change? I want you to have that constant kind of approach. The youngsters, because I find youngsters are very adaptable. So, you know.
Let me ask you this. How receptive are the homeless to your instructions, your patience, and what you're trying to do?
There's almost like a continuum scale. You have people who are just want to get out of it, but you also have homeless. You have homeless families or individuals who I put people in homes and they went back on the street because that's all they knew. So you have that. So it's a question of taking someone and put them in a space that they're comfortable with and they feel it belongs to them. And sometimes that is more challenging than for some of them. But they are receptive to the extent that they want to get past where they are.
Okay.
And they want to,
Okay, that's good. That's a good thing. So some of those same things that you would advise for the younger generation, What about people, older generation? Would it be some of the same things that you would share with us?
What I do, I use some of this with the youngsters, but I use this more with what I call golden seniors. Um, People, when we get to our age, we're set in our ways. We're used to doing things a certain way. We define ourselves a certain way. So you find something of interest that they have, and that's your point of entry. You work with them with something that works for them. Because they're even though they're set in their ways and people are whatever, if people want to know you care, that's the first thing. They want to know you care. They don't just think you're doing this as a job or you're doing something. And a lot of times what I found is people who are helping people who are less fortunate tend to be condescending about it, you know, and they're not empathetic. And people, as I tell people all the time, if somebody doesn't care about you, I don't care what they're doing for you, you know.
Yeah.
You feel it.
Yeah.
So when you go to people, my grandmother used to say when she saw people in a less fortunate position, she used to say, there but for the grace of God go I.
Yes. Yes.
So if you approach that and say, okay, you know, you find commonalities and work with them, you know.
That's good. That's great. I could listen to you all day. You have a lot of nuggets. Oh, is there anything else you want to share with your audience, you know, or me that you want to leave with us?
I think I probably covered a lot. We'll save some for the next time.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. So I'm going to end the show, but stay on.